Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's Wednesday, April 6th. This is FPC Radio Live. And, of course, I am Ian Glendon. And, we are back here for another live episode, back-to-back days. It's starting a little bit late, but, hey, this is kind of, quote-unquote, the off-season for us. This is the only time of the year that we're ever going to get a break from doing the show every single day and on a very consistent schedule. So we try to put out as many episodes as we feel like throughout the week. Certainly the NFL has kept us busy this offseason. There's been certainly an abundance of news stories to talk about. And John, we have yet another one. And this time it's not a player moving from team to team. It's just one committing to one team for several more seasons. And that is Stefon Diggs has signed a 4-year, $120 million contract extension that keeps him in Buffalo for the next 6 seasons combined with his current contract. So first off, smart play by Buffalo. They see that they are a championship contending team right now. They see the obstacles that these other teams have gone through with some of their star wide receivers, mainly Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Buffalo just doesn't want to deal with this. So from a 2022 standpoint, 2023, obviously he was already under contract, but this makes the receiver happy. And again, it just shows that the team is committed to him at being part of what they anticipate to be a pretty successful run here in the next few years. So it seems like it's a good contract. Now, again, we can get into the fact that in a couple years, you're going to have about 30% tied up into 2 players, mainly the quarterback and the wide receiver of your salary cap, and that can be an issue. But for right now, Stefon Diggs is happy, Bills Mafia is happy, and the Bills, and we've said it here before, John, I think they're the best team in the AFC, and the window is open for them right now.
Yeah, I think they are the best team in the AFC. And I think the Patriots and Dolphins will still be competitive in that division. We saw what the Dolphins have done so far in the offseason, so they're going to be competitive. The Patriots are there. The Jets, maybe they win a couple more games, which is expected from a team that suffered through yet another abysmal season. But the Bills are considered the favorite in that division, and they're in a real position to maybe secure the number 1 seed because we know that in the AFC West, you get Kansas City, the Raiders, Denver, the Chargers, they're all going to beat up on each other. And even the AFC North, I think, is a pretty competitive division. So things may open up for Buffalo to be the top seed and eventually, need to win 2 home games to get back to a Super Bowl. This is a franchise that's in an all-win now mode, right? And they have to be. They've never won a Super Bowl. They have a franchise quarterback. They have a good defense. I think they have a solid coaching staff. Saved the final 20 seconds of the divisional round against Kansas City last year. But now you re-up your star wide receiver, and then you added Von Miller, who is a big game player, to be a pass rusher in January and into February. So I think the Bills are making all the right moves and look to me to be the best team in the AFC right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, individually, if you look at all these teams, I think they're better than Kansas City. I think they're better than Denver. I think they're better than Cincinnati. Like, I know Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl, but I still think Buffalo is in my eyes are probably have a little bit more sustainability. So that exists, but then, as you mentioned, and we've talked about before, the added element of, the AFC West is going to beat the hell out of each other. And I just can't see a path, short of Buffalo, just underperforming based on their expectations this season. I don't see a path where any one of those teams can earn the number 1 seed because I just think they're just going to, quote unquote, take votes away from each other. We hear that all the time in, MVP vote races and stuff like that. But now, John, we mentioned this. We talked about this during the playoff and in the postseason and kind of towards the end of last season when it came to the Chiefs. And I think the same exact thing is starting to apply to the Bills. This window is not going to be open infinitely. And you mentioned the Patriots and the Dolphins. And I think obviously with the Dolphins, a lot has to go on Tua. Is he the guy? I don't know, but they can certainly set them up to go, after a quarterback next year, which can, and we've seen this offseason that, just a pursuit of a veteran quarterback you may not even be thinking about, or Tom Brady, will make your team infinitely better. Mac Jones could take a huge leap in year 2. I know the people have decided on one way or the other with Mac Jones, which is silly because no one knows. I mean, you can sit there and talk all you want, but no one really knows. He could take a huge leap in year 2. And all of a sudden, this AFC East is starting to look a little bit better than what we think it is now. So just like with Kansas City, their best opportunity to win a second Super Bowl in their run was last year. And we've seen how quickly that has dried up, even when they lost, but even more so now with the trade of Tyreek Hill and kind of just the evolution of the AFC. Well, that's going to keep happening. So Buffalo, they need to win. Kansas City at least had a Super Bowl under their belt. Buffalo doesn't. They need to win now, and the pressure is going to start to build because they're not a team now that's going to be an underdog. Their expectation is a Super Bowl or bust. There's no other expectation for that. Can Josh Allen handle that? Can the Buffalo Bills handle that? I don't know. I think they can. Yeah.
I think they underperformed last year. I mean, they only went 11-6, and that roster's better than that. But they did turn it on late. Remember, they were getting
I think sometimes, John, I think that can be sometimes a good thing for a team. Like, how losing is now, like, how some people are like, oh, you should lose so you don't go undefeated. No, that's stupid. That's dumb. Never intentionally go out and lose a game. However, you can learn if you're a team that's able to learn from mistakes and evolve, losing can be beneficial because it can expose mistakes and vulnerabilities that you may not necessarily think you have. And Buffalo, I think, realized that and played better moving forward. Again, last game notwithstanding.
Yeah, I mean, remember they were really struggling. It looked like the Patriots had control of the division. Buffalo went down to Tampa, was getting absolutely blown out in the first half, but then they came back in the second half, forced overtime, and then lost to Tom Brady in overtime. But at that moment, you could see, okay, maybe Buffalo figured out some things in the second half of that game, and after that, they played really good football.
Look, there's no shame in losing to Tom Brady in overtime. Like, he's going to do that.
That happens. That happens to everybody. But they seem to right the ship, and we saw what they did against the Patriots in the wild card round, and then I still can't believe they didn't beat Kansas City in the divisional round. They had opportunities to just seal that game up, and I think they probably would have gone on and at least gone to the Super Bowl and maybe won it.
Yeah, I mean, I do. Like I said, I thought Buffalo was better than Cincinnati, and this is no disrespect to Cincinnati. I think they, overachieved a little bit. I think they can, certainly get back. I just think that Buffalo's a better team. I think they're better coached. I don't, I'm not, this isn't a significant, like, I like Sean McDermott. I think he's a really good coach in this league. I don't think there's a massive gap between him and Zach Taylor. Cause they're both kind of from the same walk. You know what I mean? Like, they come from the same background in terms of coaching background and everything like that. So I think there's a lot of similarities, and we don't really know enough about Zach Taylor yet. So this is more about not making a final judgment or not really knowing much about Zach Taylor. I mean, the guy brought the team to a Super Bowl. It's pretty darn impressive. Sean McDermott hasn't done that yet. Although no one's going to sit here and say that he's a poor coach. Although, again, there's still moments where you sit there and say, well, sometimes it might get a little bit too much for him. But we were saying that about Sean McVay, or at least I was. And we saw how that turned out. So I like Buffalo a lot. Not personally, obviously, but in this in this conference. But I would caution Bills Mafia in thinking that this is a setting up for a run for long, because you know what they say about the NFL, it's not for long. And Kansas City is experiencing that right now, and I think Buffalo is going to have experience that at some point, especially if they don't win the Super Bowl. It's going to hit a lot harder.
Well, just look at the Green Bay Packers, right? After winning the Super Bowl following the 2010 season, they have yet to return to a Super Bowl. But during that time, they've had the second best record in football, behind only the Patriots. It's a weird thing when you think of that, right? Like, year in and year out, the Packers are always there, but they can't just break through. And again, the second most successful team in the NFL since 2010.
Well,
it's only gone in one Super Bowl.
The Seahawks went to back-to-back Super Bowls and have not made it back to the NFC Championship game since.
Yep.
Like,
that's not easy.
And again, any chance I get to mention Tom Brady, I will, especially in a very positive manner. He has completely upended the way certain things are viewed in this league, and
Right.
it's kind of a problem when it comes to trying to find some balance in conversation because we when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, we've talked about this a lot. His career, in some ways, is being framed as failure's a harsh word, but you
Hmm.
understand what I'm saying. It's being framed as underwhelming. Like, how could he only do this? How could he? Well,
Right.
what he's accomplished is having a Hall of Fame great career, arguably, a top 10, obviously you put him in the top 10, a lot of people put him in the top 10 of all time career. But since he didn't go to 7 Super Bowls or 10 Super Bowls, his
Right.
career is looked at in a way as a failure.
Yep.
And this is how we judge it. Oh, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, we heard Tyreek Hill 2 seasons ago. Travis Kelsey as well. Why not? Let's go for 7. This is a dynasty. This dynasty that, and it's like, let's pump the brakes a little bit before we start crowning these guys because, and this is what we were saying in 2018, 2019. Like, just pump the brakes. Let them play.
Mhm.
Let them figure this out. Because guess what? In the near 60-year history of the Super Bowl, I mean, a longer history of the NFL, we haven't seen what the Patriots have done or
No.
Tom Brady
I,
has done. So
no.
again, let's not take that as the norm because it isn't. But we'll see.
No. No. When
Yeah.
you look at, say, Dan Marino and Aaron Rodgers, Dan Marino went to 1 Super Bowl and lost. Aaron Rodgers has gone to 1 Super Bowl and won. But because of what Tom Brady's accomplished, you would think that Marino had the greater career than Rodgers, even though Rodgers does have the 1 Super Bowl. It's better than none.
Hmm.
So I think you also have to frame this as look at the NBA in the 90s when Jordan just dominated the decade, right? He won 6 championships in 8 years. And in one of the ones he didn't win, he sat out the entire season. And the other one, he sat out, 80% of the season. 3 great players. I mean, all-time great players. Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, and Charles Barkley, all on the dream team. Phenomenal players. No championships because Jordan just dominated that
Hmm.
decade, kind of like Brady has done really for 2 decades when you consider that he's gone to 10 Super Bowls, which is still just absolutely ridiculous considering the second quarterback, the quarterback with the second most Super Bowl appearances is the great John Elway with 5.
Yeah,
He's doubled him.
but yet people still constantly compare quarterback A to Tom Brady, whether it's at
Right.
the end of their
Yeah.
career or at the beginning. Like, even look, when Rodgers first started, the comparisons early on were a little ridiculous, but surely not out of this world because at the time, Brady had won only 3 Super Bowls. Now again, he
Mhm.
had quite a bit of you know going for him. So I mean, again, this idea that Rodgers was already on GOAT pace. Even then, it's like, look, I got to go back in time, and honestly, I could tell you that I probably wouldn't have even put Tom Brady as the greatest of all time at that point. Certainly not. No, I can tell you for sure I didn't because, well, I like to see myself as a very reasonable person, but I also sat there and said, like, look, you cannot, as great as what Tom Brady has done at this point. We're talking 2010, 2009, 2010 as great as what he has done, there have been others that have done it better at
Mhm.
that point. Now, again, that was 12 years ago. Things have obviously changed significantly because, well, at that point, he basically went out and did everything again and then some. So to even compare Rodgers at that point was a little absurd, but it gets even more ridiculous when you're trying to compare, a few years ago, Patrick Mahomes to Brady. And, even more so now that you're comparing, like, it's more ridiculous now to compare Aaron Rodgers to Tom Brady than it was to compare Aaron Rodgers to Tom Brady when Aaron Rodgers first won his Super Bowl. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Because at that point it was 3-1, and Rodgers had, age on his side, and also looked like they were going to dominate the NFC the way the Patriots were going to dominate the AFC. And it's still amazing they never met in the Super Bowl. A couple of times Green Bay came up short in their respective conference championship games. So yeah, at that point it's like, this guy Rodgers won a Super Bowl in his third year as a starter. That team is young and talented. They should be back there on a consistent basis. And again, it's not like they've been bad. They've been really
Yeah.
good. They've been the second best team in football, but they just can't seem to break through and get to the Super Bowl. So it's kind of and that's frustrating. If you have more of the Eli Manning stand where, okay, win a Super Bowl in '07, win one in '11, and then the rest of the time you're not really doing anything. You know, he's the Hillary Swank of quarterbacks. She's been nominated twice for Best Actress and won both times. Like, that's it. Aaron Rodgers is like, you know, the actor or actress that keeps getting nominated but doesn't win the Oscar. So so that is pretty fascinating. But you make a great point there, because look, I've said this a million times, Ian. With Tom Brady, he's had 3 different careers. His first third, he was essentially Troy Aikman, you know, winning 3 Super Bowls on a really, really good team. The middle part of his career, he was essentially Dan Marino, where he didn't win a Super Bowl, but he was winning MVPs and putting up ridiculous numbers. The final third of his career has been Joe Montana, where he's won 4 Super Bowls.
And
you know, so
and in all, even in that middle stretch, he was still going to Super Bowls, and there was an undefeated season thrown in there as well. So like,
just ridiculous. 2 MVPs and 50 touchdown passes. I mean, just like he had, like a lot of great players have 2 Hall of Fame careers. Like there's a few of them in there. Like I think Barry Bonds, Pittsburgh, early San Francisco, followed by late San Francisco's like 2 full Hall of Fame careers. Jordan, LeBron, you know, this guy's had 3.
We've talked about guys like Wayne, and I have all the utmost, you know, admiration for a guy like Wayne Gretzky, because I think obviously he was a great player, but also I think he's a great ambassador for the game, and I think he's a generally good person. Obviously only based on just what we've seen from it. But like, even him, like, you know, we talked about it before, he won very early on in his career, so it was very front heavy. So you can make an argument that, like, yeah, I mean, he might he might like have the stats for sure. I mean, that you could argue, but you know, he would have a big fat 0 when it comes to championship success. And not just that, but like championship experience. You know, it wasn't just like they didn't win. Like the Rangers, you know what I mean? Like when he spent time with the Rangers, they obviously didn't go. When he was, you know, the Blues didn't go, and that like 3 months that he was with the St. Louis Blues. So like, or the Kings, it's like, you know, I believe they went to one final, but still they didn't win. So, and that was again early on in his career, relatively. So, yeah, I mean, it's the point, and we always tend to kind of go down this road when we start talking, but the bigger point being is that, you know, all too often the success of a player and teams are unfairly compared to the Patriots and Brady, and also when they most definitely do not fulfill those expectations, they are brought down, when in reality, you know, this is how the cycle of the NFL is. And this is how it's been for years. I mean, certainly since the salary cap was put in place. I mean, with, again, the lone exception of the Patriots, who just have completely thrown things off kilter. So what happens? Well, you know, Kansas City comes in. They happen to get a quarterback that's dynamic enough that they can have immediate success and take their already pretty good team to a next level. And what do? Boom. Win a Super Bowl right away. They have 3 or 4 years where they're very dominant. What do they look like now? Just another team in the AFC.
They're no sure bet.
There's no. I mean, look, they could go out and go back to a Super Bowl, and we're going to sit here and reevaluate what the future may be. But the reality of it is, this is what it works. This is how it works. 3 or 4 years, you keep most of the talent. Eventually, guys are going to start going. Guys are going to start, you know, having talents that aren't quite the same, and you get right back into the mix. You get right back into the cycle until the next nice run. Now it's Buffalo's turn to do that. I mean, maybe they may only have this year, if you think about it, John, because look, I don't know what's going to happen with Denver. Russell Wilson may elevate that team. It may not be this year, but it may be next year that they're a real serious threat. Chargers, same thing. I'm down on Brandon Staley, but if they can overcome their coaching problems, they would have won the damn division last year. So they could end up all of a sudden being that team. So then Buffalo's not looking like the sure thing anymore, and it's going to become infinitely more difficult. So my conclusion is this, John. This is the year for the Buffalo Bills. And something tells me, John, that it's ultimately going to end up with them losing to Tom Brady. And it's going to be the happiest moment of my life to that point.
Imagine the Bills finally get back to the Super Bowl after 30-something years and they got to face Tom Brady.
You, John, you know what's going to happen, right? You realize this,
And that's
correct?
also what Vegas thinks too.
Yeah,
This
well,
isn't like,
well, but that's exactly. But that's the thing too. This isn't just a fantasy in my mind. Oh, this would be a great
no.
storyline. No, those are arguably the two top contenders from their respective conferences. And
Yep.
you're not going to find too many people are going to disagree. Like I know people, oh, the Rams won the Super Bowl. Well, look, the Rams, they could be really good next year. I don't know. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to, but are you going to tell me that they're all of a sudden like the standard bearer for success in the NFL? I don't know. I mean, they could go. We've seen. Look at Philadelphia. They went out and won a Super Bowl, and everyone's like, "Oh, Philly's the next thing," and they haven't even sniffed any sort of success since. So, the Rams could just be the one-off. Yes, we won. We're happy. We got there. We're satisfied. We're going to get fat and rich, and that's it. Who knows? I know that's not going to happen with the Buccaneers because Tom Brady's there. So
Yeah, no, I mean Vegas thinks it's going to be Buffalo, Tampa Bay. That's not from out of left field to make that prediction. I still am looking at the 49ers as a potential team, but I want to know what their quarterback situation is, and that's a big question, right? I mean, it's the quarterback because I think the rest of their roster can compete with anyone else's. The Rams, it's tough to repeat. We know that, and Green Bay has no weapons for Aaron Rodgers. So what the hell's going to happen there? So
yeah, I mean they couldn't even get back when they had weapons. So again, I think the idea of that Green Bay's just going to be right back in the mix is, I mean, I think that's premature. That's why I hesitate to put them in that tier one level with the Bucks and the Rams. And I'm giving the Rams respect because they are the Super Bowl champions. But it's still if you're gonna ask me to put any sort of money on anything, I'm always going to bet on Tom Brady. I mean, that's just the smart bet. I mean, odds say, guess what? You're in pretty good shape. But that's who I'm betting on in the NFC because so far, even with or without Gronk. Now, if they don't have Rob Gronkowski, and he's certainly no sure thing to return, I think he ultimately will. They're going to have to, find something at the tight end position. But even with or without them, I don't think this is an issue because I think they have enough on offense and certainly on defense, and they still have room to improve. So,
yeah, and they've got a division they should win handily, right? I don't see any of those three teams competing against Tampa Bay, so they should go at worst 5-1 in the division. I know New Orleans always gives them trouble because their defense is good, but they've lost some player capital on that side of the ball. So yeah, right off the bat, if you're going 5-1, 6-0 in your division, you should be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's the NFC, so their path is clear. And again, you have the added advantage that I do believe that they are the best team in the NFC. So, all right, John, we're gonna nip it in the butt there just because there's no time to really start anything new, and my voice is starting to go. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back on Friday for another live episode. Maybe we're going to see another contract extension, maybe a trade, whatever. But we're creeping closer and closer to the NFL draft, which is coming up in just a few weeks. Go over to fullpresscoverage.com and check out the latest FPC NFL mock draft. Side note, we literally published this about 45 minutes before the Eagles and Saints made their trade. So use your imagination, folks. Unfortunately, the mock draft gods got us again. So check it out over at fullpresscoverage.com, fullpresshockey.com, and of course, give us a follow on Twitter, Full Press NFL, Full Press Radio, and FPC Radio Live. Have a great day, folks. We'll talk to you later.